Call to order the Planning Commission December 1st, 2022 meeting. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Luke, if you could do the roll call for us, please.
Pearson.
Here.
Willenbring. Here. Stolarski.
Here.
Diata.
Here.
McCauley.
Here.
Campbell.
Present.
Thank you very much. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any comments, changes, or anything related to the minutes from last meeting? Nope. Seeing none, I call for a move to adopt as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Minutes are approved or adopted. We have one order of business for the new business, a Larson Family Real Estate LLLP forefront commercial retail property site plan. Luke, if you have a report for us.
Yes, good evening. Luke McClanahan, City Planner. If we can see the image on the screen here. Here's just a location to orient you to the property. Here is 694 for reference and 34th Street. And the property is on it's at the northwest quadrant of 34th Street and High Point Drive. It's located within that forefront technology campus. This is part of the 3M IMATION Planned Unit Development, so PUD. And the parcel is currently vacant, and it consists of 8.5 acres. And the purpose of the request, and there's actually two site plans that will be heard tonight. It's for commercial and retail development on the same property. So there are two site plans as mentioned. So option one would feature a grocery store and a parking area. And in the event that the grocery store deal does not pan out, then site plan option two is the backup plan with a car wash and another commercial use. And I'll show those two site plans here in a moment. A bit of background on the site. It was re-guided per the comprehensive plan for commercial use in the summer of 2022. And also the PUD was amended to allow for certain commercial and retail uses specifically on this property. So here is a look at the first site plan. So again, on the south side is 34th Street and then High Point Drive. There's also a new road being constructed here on the west side of the property, so that I believe that's Hayward Avenue. So this site will have three accesses to it. So one here off High Point, and then as High Point gets extended, it becomes a private drive, and then there's another access point on the north side here, and then a new access along or off Hayward. So site plan option one features 6 commercial buildings, notably the grocery store in the northwest portion of the site, and then just to the south of that is its parking area. There is a street that's essentially bisects this development, and then there's also a street that goes kind of north-south just on the east side of the grocery store. Yes, in terms of the actual design for that grocery store, the Planning Commission might have some thoughts or some comments on the actual design. But as staff, we looked at this, we discussed it in detail. There seems to be many grocery stores or big box stores that have very similar setups with roads separating the building from the parking lot. But again, we welcome any comments that you would have on that. Other uses for the site would include restaurants, a coffee shop, a pharmacy, a bank, and other general commercial and retail uses. A couple highlights I'd like to point out here. The internal road that's serving the various commercial buildings is sufficient for EMS and EMS vehicle ingress and egress. I would like to point out that a traffic analysis was included as part of this application. It was prepared by an engineer, and it recommended a new turn lane off High Point Drive to the site. That's currently not there in existence as we speak. And then another proposal from that traffic analysis was 2 turn lanes off two turn lanes on the site access approach to High Point. So just to improve the overall vehicle circulation to the site, both in and out. Proposed sidewalks for this site would be along High Point, and then internally as well, there's going to be some sidewalks. And there does appear to be sufficient parking for the proposed uses. For stormwater provisions, there are 4 stormwater basins within the site itself, as well as some off-site stormwater just to the west, and I believe there's stormwater being funneled to the north as well. Trash enclosures, landscaping, and site lighting requirements, those have been met per our code regulations. And then there's also a proposed pylon sign that will have to be reviewed as part of a signage permit when upon approval of this request. I would like to note that the applicant will need to get approval from the fire department for the proposed hydrant locations. And Washington County Public Works, they did review the site plan, and they suggested that a trail be constructed along 34th Street and a 4th leg crossing at the intersection of 34th and High Point. However, there is an existing trail that's south of 34th Street, and the developer's already committed to improvements for a sidewalk along High Point and as well as traffic improvements at the intersection of 34th and High Point. So this request meets site plan standards, subject to certain conditions listed in the draft resolution. I'll read those off in just a moment. So moving on to site plan option 2. Now this is essentially identical to the option 1, with the changes being the car wash in place of the grocery store. And in lieu of having a parking area to the south, they would utilize that space for another commercial use. The building just east of that would be slightly different in size as well as the surfacing around that. But otherwise, it's essentially the same as option 1. As the underlying zoning for this property is PUD, and it allows for certain commercial uses, staff believes that this car wash would be subject to approval through a conditional use permit, where the city would have the opportunity to take a closer look at the use and place certain conditions on it. The remainder of the property, as mentioned, would essentially be the same. Like I said, like option 1, this proposed site plan meets the conditions of our ordinance with the conditions that are listed in the draft resolution. Here are a couple selected renderings of the proposed commercial buildings. So in the top left is the grocery store. And the applicant might correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm going to kind of go through these. I believe this next one here, the smaller image, is a restaurant. And then just to the right of that is a rendering of a pharmacy. And then to the bottom left is a rendering of a coffee shop. And then to the bottom right there is a rendering of a proposed bank. I would like to note for exterior building materials and design, the buildings will need to meet ordinance standards for architecture, which will be verified at the time of building permits. And ground level and rooftop utilities for these structures will need to be properly screened per the ordinance. I'll jump to this slide here. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Like I mentioned, staff believes that this would be reviewed and approved through a conditional use permit, but it is the renderings for the car wash, just to give you a flavor of what that might look like. So jumping back. So staff recommends approval of both site plan requests, subject to the provisions and conditions in the draft resolutions. And just for the record, I will go through those, so bear with me. So option 1, the first condition is that the developer pay the cost of the recommended improvements for High Point Drive North as detailed in the traffic analysis submitted with the request. Number 2, the developer construct the sidewalk from the High Point Drive North cul-de-sac to the intersection with 34th Street North, and the traffic signal improvements at High Point Drive North and 34th Street North. If the city constructs such improvements, it will assess the developer for the cost of the improvements. Number 3, architectural plans must be submitted with the building permits for the structures. Number 4, approval of a development agreement for site improvements. Number 5, all ground mechanical equipment must be properly screened. I would say that number 6 does not apply in this case. Since the time that this went out, we looked into this a little bit further, and the off-site stormwater provisions would actually be owned and maintained by the city. So you can disregard condition number 6. Condition number 7, permits and approvals must be obtained from the Valley Branch Watershed District. Number 8, obtain approval from the city's fire marshal for the proposed fire hydrant locations. And number 9, approval of the site civil construction plans for the water, sewer, and storm sewer system by the city engineer. And turning to the conditions for site plan option 2, the only difference here from the conditions that I just listed for the previous one is this first condition. Number 1, a conditional use permit be obtained to construct a car wash on the property. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the applicant is here if you have questions for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. First question I guess I would have is alluded to from number 2.1, the car wash use of water and sewer. As I recall, there was some issue in this area where we had some level of concern a year or two ago about the amount of water that could be supplied to this area and the amount of sewer with the current system. Is there any change to that at this point?
I don't believe so, because when we, the city did a study of that area, it was in relation to residential impacts and more specifically multifamily development, particularly in this area. But in terms of commercial uses, I don't think that the water usage would be a concern.
Okay, that was the first one that hit. Anyone else have any questions for Luke?
Just a clarifying thing, Resolution 2, number 2, is different than Resolution 1, number 1. So in first resolution, the developer pay the costs of the recommended improvements. And the second one is the developer contribute toward the recommended improvements. And I know it's small, but we
Sure.
should probably just align those. And then my question is, along that same number, is the intent that the city builds these improvements and the developer is just paying a contribution fee towards that?
Yeah, so, no, that is, I guess to your first point, the developer, I guess it should read, the developer pay towards the recommended improvements. And then, in terms of whether it's developer initiated or city initiated in terms of the construction, that can be kind of complicated just depending on the timing of certain projects that the city is going to take on. So I don't know if maybe it's best that it's kind of open-ended, that, you know, the developer could do it or otherwise the city could do it.
Right, but okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions for Luke?
How much did the traffic study take into account Willowbrook being fully built up?
The traffic study that was submitted with this request, you know, I would have to maybe defer to the applicant on that question, so.
Any other questions before I bring up the?
I just have a question, and thank you for your presentation. With this traffic study, is this something that sort of the city relating to the applicant to provide a study, or is the city sort of part of the study? It's like, do you sort of leave it to the applicant to provide us with a traffic study, or do you have staff that's involved in that?
No, So in terms of actually conducting the study, it's, you know, the onus is on the applicant, but the review is on the city to verify that the findings, the conclusions are accurate and I guess consistent with what the city would expect from such a study.
Thank you.
Okay, any other calls? Then I would ask if the Larson Family Real Estate Group would like to come make any comments.
Got it.
I didn't know if there was an open-ended question from the traffic study, so that's why, Carrie Eggleston, I'm a development manager with United Properties, and I just wanted to note that, yes, so the traffic study takes into account the future developments through 2040, the planning, and so that would have been accounted for. Willowbrook would have been accounted in that.
As long as you're there.
All right.
Do you have a question? This is not related to necessarily the Planning Commission's jurisdiction. This is a personal question.
Okay.
On option 2 with a car wash, have you done a study to see if you've got an economic feasibility with 3 existing car washes within a half a mile?
We have not done a study specific to that, but we have seen significant demand from the market for this, so we believe that there's a really significant demand for that.
Okay, like I said, it's more of a personal question on this
Yep.
one. I was curious since I knew there were 3 other ones there.
Yeah, we've got some really great momentum on this site, so we're looking forward to working with the city to move forward and get some good traction here.
And to clarify, as the developer, you're not building this car wash, you're selling the pad to outside third-party user that's going to come in and build their building and operate that business.
That would need to be determined right now. We're moving forward under the assumption that this is one lot with ground leases in place, but, you know, we need to work with the prospects as they come in, but right now the assumption is we're moving forward, will remain one lot.
And if you did a car wash, what is your proposed use? Kind of what's your vision right now for that additional building immediately to the south?
It's a curated mix, right? So we need to understand, we've got, as we noted, we have national coffee. It all comes down to where we place them on the site. So with that car wash, I can't tell you exactly who would be directly south of that, but that,
I guess where I'm going is I think staff had some initial concerns about employment levels at a grocer and the kind of pedestrian activity and just the activation of that site with a grocer versus a car wash. And if you're going the direction of a car wash, you're obviously adding 5,000 square feet of additional retail commercial of some sort. So I guess I was just more curious, what is that? Is it, I don't know. So
it could be a pharmacy, it could be a quick serve retail, it could be a restaurant. The concerns are noted for the employment levels with the car wash. With the car washes today, a lot of them are full service, and you know, a lot of them employ. I believe the staff had noted in here, you know, there was concerns that there would be one employee at a time, but a lot of these full service car washes employ anywhere from 4 to 8 employees. And if you compare that to some of these grocery stores or to a pharmacy, there's not that much big of a difference in the levels of employment there. So,
thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, none. I thank you very
great.
much.
Thank you for having us this evening.
Any other further discussion from the rest of the Planning Commission?
I guess just one comment from me with my concern on the car wash. You know, I was over in St. Paul the other day, drove by the Mr. Car Wash, used to be the old, I don't even remember what it was, years ago. And West 7th there, I think it was West 7th, it's like a sheet of ice, yeah, because of, you know, all these cars come out of the wash, it's in the winter, they're wet, they're dropping their water, it freezes, and so I just have some concerns about that from a circulation standpoint around the site. Don't know how you address it, but it's a concern of mine, so.
It seems like this is a pretty vague right now, that they're just trying to get their feet going in the direction, and they're looking at it as in 2040 and could possibly, have two different things that we're voting on here, so it seems to me like that it's still so up in the air that they're really not sure what they're gonna put in there for a fact. They're just trying to get forward motion, basically, it sounds like to me, and so so they can get the bids for the grocery store or the car wash. So I guess city council will get into the more specifics on it. They're just trying to get that's just how it seems to me, how this is why we're here and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think you're not going to get more specifics, though, in 30 days before they get to council. And my sense is that they know what they want to do. They just don't have signed agreements with tenants and things like
Right,
that to be
right.
able to come out and say, yes, this is a
Exact.
XYZ grocery store, and yes, this is an ABC coffee shop, and things like that. So that's where some of that vagueness is coming from.
Any other comments? Luke? You certainly may.
So, I'm Kenny Larson, part of the Larson family real estate, and also the one of the owners at the Forefront campus. And as we've moved forward with each of these projects, we've been really pleasantly surprised the initial interest. So you're exactly right. We've got lots of options, and really what we're looking for is the ability to go forward. My biggest concern is a lot of these have multiple areas that they're looking across the country in terms of here's new opportunities. And when we've got the ability to say, yes, we're ready to go, we really think that this can get done really very quickly. But without it, then if there's more just delays and roadblocks with it, that's the part that gets challenging for us. So everything from the way that this looks and feels, you know what that Forefront campus looks like. We're the owners of that. We want it to look awesome. And we're committed to that with all of the tenants in there, from all of the materials and what that looks and feels like. So as Carrie said, the way that they all piece together, it's hard to do that until, we've got the go-ahead, but we've had really good discussions with the brokers on how all of that would look. And if it was a car wash behind there, the one in front, we know that we're going to be able to piece it together where it looks really, really good. And if there's any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them from the owner perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions and comment. I want to thank you for coming to Oakdale, because I'm sure you probably have other choices, but you came here. That's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we've loved it. So I think the transaction from that iMation campus was in 2016. I'm not sure if you've gotten updates along the way, but the building is now 85% occupied. Building 1 is 100%. Building 2 is 100%. Building 3 is 100%. And we're left with just some space in Building 4, and we're active. We've got 3 leases that we're looking at this week. So we think there's a path forward in 2023 where we're 100% occupied, and we'll want to look at additional add-ons to that part of the building too, because we've got, so we're really excited and bullish. And the residential on the north side does nothing but help all of what I think the interest is on this front retail part. And there's other land that as we get these done, we want to come before you to continue to develop the whole piece around it. We've got a really, I think, pretty exciting master plan for the whole.
As you were reading off the building numbers, I'm familiar with them as Discovery.
Yes. So I kind of did it left to right. So building 1 has 1 floor.
West side going towards the east.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, we tried to simplify it. So building 1 is 1 story, building 2 is 2, building 3 is 3 stories, building 4 is 4. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but that's how we named it. And if you haven't seen it, the industrial right on the west side is well under construction, and that's going to be just a beautiful building that if you haven't driven on 694, the exposure is great, and it's going to be another big part of the development.
I used to exist in Pod D of Building 4. So
Okay. Well, with all of the what's in that building, and So the first floor is just about 100% occupied. 2, we just transitioned 1 to another part of the building, so there's just 1 space there. 3 is almost done. It's the 4th floor that is the piece that we're going to do next, and we've got 1 pod of the 4th floor that's done. So we're on our way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Luke, I have one question before we go to moving the resolutions. You said point 6 is no longer in place, so I'm going to read it off as saying point 6 is deleted. Is that correct?
Correct, and option 2, the resolution for that, number 7 should also be deleted to be consistent.
And then on option 2, I was also going to say that point 2 of it, the contribute, you had said should read pay.
The developer pay the cost of the
Pay toward,
recommended.
it would just read pay toward the recommended. Is that what you had stated you wanted to, you were intending?
Well, I guess to be consistent with option 1, the resolution, first condition, the developer pay the cost of the recommended improvements.
So just say copy, that number 1 will read as option 1.1 read.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That when I bring up option 2, option 2.1 will read as option 1.1.
Okay.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion on a resolution approving the site plan, option 1 for the forefront commercial and retail property, with point 6 being of the requirement, conditions being removed.
So moved.
That's Tom, yeah,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Option 2, a resolution approving the site plan, option 2 for the forefront commercial and retail property. Point 1 is point 2 is modified to read as point 1 of option 1, and point 7 is deleted. So we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Both resolutions are approved for passage to the city council. That concludes our new business. Thank you for coming. Luke, moving on to the planning and development update.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple updates here. First one is an update on the Glenbrook study. So despite the snow from Tuesday, we had a relatively successful neighborhood meeting at Fire Station Number 1, where we had neighbors of the Glenbrook area weigh in and provide some input on the vision for the Glenbrook area and its future. There are going to be more stakeholder engagements, so I know some folks couldn't make the meeting because of the snow, but we're offering some other alternative ways for them to meet with the project team to get their input. And the only other item I have is that we anticipate having a January meeting. We are expecting another site plan request, so keep an eye out for the January meeting.
Thank you very much. Next, city council update. Councilmember Swedberg.
Wow, this is a short meeting tonight. This is good.
Places to do, for places to go, things to do.
Yeah. I have just a few updates. That MWF Affordable Housing, Senior Housing Plan that you guys approved, we talked about it at City Council at the workshop, and tentatively, it's a go for them to proceed and get a more formal plan to us. There is a few conditions added, but it sounds like it's a good thing. So that's a good thing. Willowbrook Parks, we're talking about that at City Council. How many parks there's going to be up there, and it's going to be a phased-in approach. You can't do all of them at once. So the Commons will be the first one, and it will be phased in over a few years. And we also have to decide how we're going to pay for everything, so more to come on that. The third thing, the revisions to the 2040 comp plan that you guys reviewed and approved. City Council approved it, and it has gone to Met Council for their approval. Because before we can fully implement it, they have to approve the 2040 revision plan. Okay? Is there any other questions you have? Well, everyone have a safe and happy holiday then, okay? Thanks.
Thank you. Our agenda is completed, so I'll look for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Anybody ever actually oppose